Good morning. Here's how to do a simple drawing, start to finish, with correct pre-thought on what you might do. That would mean that as you know to start, you know what scale you're going to plot at, though that's not such a knowledgeable thing. I will do a quick version for those who just want to get something on a sheet of paper. Be very wary of thinking that's what CAD is. And I will do one more showing how this works then in 3D. So I've begun a drawing. I'm in AutoCAD 2010 Civil 3D, but it's made to look like AutoCAD 2010 normal. I'm going to make sure that I go out to the correct sheet to start. I'm going to start with a decimal template. We'll see what this has on it. I haven't updated my drive from home, but I want to point out the white for us means paper layout. We're ignoring references that aren't there. And you notice on the front sheet I have the view, the layer state, and the plot style predetermined for you. If you want to start very early at this point, and this is something that I semi-apologize for, it is to change the title on here by typing DWG props. DWG props. It's in the drawing information someplace up here. It's in drawing utilities. It is right there if you want to know where it is, but the command is DWG props. DWG props. Waiting for that to come in. So if you start that early and if the first part of the drawing, then you won't have to do it when it comes time to plotting. So it's going to very much vary. It is much too intense or deep of a place to put your basic name, but when you do it, you can put the title as a plotting example. In this case, my keyboard is having major issues here, so we're going to stop in a second here. Alright, so my keyboard is having issues, and it's going to continue to have issues here, so I'm going to just leave this as it is. Hit cancel here. Someone gave me a viewport. That right there, how do I know it's a viewport? The only way to know it's a viewport is by listing it. It's got potential problems because it's pre-made for you. You want to tend to get rid of it. However, it's there for the quick one-off, which is not the way to do plotting. Go into here and make a box bigger than what you want to make. So I would strongly suggest that you make your boxes as a fee box so you don't forget that construction. So I'm going to do that here. You notice I have no toolbars here, so I have to type minus toolbar, say draw, and then say show. I don't need to do that. How it's worthwhile having toolbars around. Right click, perhaps bring on the modify toolbar, as you're going to start to use that a little bit when you start to try to build selection sets that you can remember. It's a nice idea to draw a box or a rectangle bigger than what you want to draft. I'm going to make mine start 1, 1, a one size box. I'm going to draw a line from the midpoint to the midpoint, and I'm going to draw a circle from the intersection to the end point. And now we have a fee box. If we explode, or we could have stretched and extend, screw that. I'm erasing cross. I now have essentially offset through, or if I just want to draw a box on top, rectangle from the shift right click, the end point there, you can go the other way to the end point there. Realizing you can erase things inside a window, I'm hitting a double here, so now I just have a box. That should go on what layer? It should go on the view layer. Right click, change the properties. You see my setting is not the same as yours. Go to view. Now, you don't need to do that at the start, but it's a good idea. I'm going to just draw a simple triangle, a design. I'm going to draw, if we think about this as now one large, it's one long, It's not a bad idea to know how long something is. So to draft a line that you want to draft, perhaps the first line you wanted to do was going to be something like 8 units long. So you want to pretty much very quickly make sure you have the layers and the right click on any toolbar. Layers 2 up. City's so great they named it twice, New York, New York, or layers, layers. 2 layers toolbars. I'm going to go to my object layer and draw my first line. It's turned off. So you learn to go and make sure all of your layers in a drawing, in this case, are turned on. If you're interested in having all the layers on, you all of a sudden might go over here to say LMan, layer manager. You might say a new layer manager state, and it might be all on. Getting all these things started at the start will make it easier later. You're ready to draft. Click here. I'm going to make my first one 8 at an angle of 10 degrees up. What's wrong? Well, I've got a box out there which I had around for before. I'm going to erase that out. That was a fee box. Now this box, that's not working for me. So I can do very often come up by orders that I can understand. Left click, you're going to the principal's office. Left click, spacebar, 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 scale it 10 times. Now that looks like it's a view box I might want to deal with. The reality is, however, as soon as you start thinking early about plotting, you've lost the point of drafting one-to-one. That said, I'm going to move that box to where I think it belongs. Moving it around. Now I'm just grabbing and selecting, and I'm going to just draw, finish this thing off. I'm going to offset a distance of 3. I'm going to draw a line from the midpoint to the end point, and I notice even with my object snaps on, my ortho snaps, the line still goes. Line from the end point to the end point. And I might also want to put a center line in there, so I could offset T for through, click here, shift right click. It turns out the midpoint of that line. And I also might want to now change that here to a different layer. So I've got something set up. Later on you're going to see the concept of text then comes in here. The last thing we'd like to do is to dimension one thing typically. You haven't done many things with dimension, and it's not set up that correctly yet, but we're going to hit dimension here. If we're going to do one dimension, we're going to use the align dimension. I'm going to go from the end point here to the end point here and pull that out there, and I want that also on the correct layer, which would be dimension. There's a lot more settings I can do. That text might not look so well, but I'm now set. I've got a basic drawing, a basic 2D drawing. I have a view frame, and at this point I could skip the next step of making a view, but I would make a view here in general. I'm going to skip that step because people don't like it, at your own peril. But if in fact the drawing zoom extents is just this yellow line, there is no pure necessity of making a view. However, Photosynth, SketchUp, Blender, MicroStation, all these other programs, and every time you're dealing at the world, Wolfram Alpha, all deal with views or something like cameras. So make a view, the command would be -V, W for window, the name of the name of the view. But I'm going to skip that step this one time through and then edit in a comment here. I'm going to go to ANSI A here. Remember now I have gotten rid of my viewport here, so I want to go ahead and make a viewport, and it should be on the viewport layer. You can do it a number of different ways, but even again, to go from here and saying at 1, 1, seems like you're repeating a step. Every time you see a repeating shape, think block. If one had making a block of the fee box, then you could have brought in that block and scaled it. That said, line from the midpoint of here to the midpoint of here. There is a way to run a calculator in here, but this is also a calculator. If this is 1, the next line should be phi. How do you get phi? It is 1 plus the square root of 5 over 2. Just like pi is the circumference divided by diameter. However, I can do a circle from the end point here to the end point there. Extend, screw that, take that there. Because it does not extend, because I did not explode it. Extend, screw that. There it is. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to make this rectangle, but I could just do an mview command. But instead, I'm going to grab that rectangle. I'm going to go from the endpoint there to the endpoint there. I'm going to erase just like I did in the model space. Erase window. I now have what is an object. It is not a viewport yet. If I list it, it is a polyline, and now I can again scale this up. In this case, 10 won't work, maybe 5 will. So I can go left click, spacebar, 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 scale 5 times. That looks like it's about right. I'm going to now right click, go to the viewports command. The viewports looks like this. The command is mview, but this one right here, convert object to viewport, that's right there. You click on that and you see immediately it came in if everything is the right size. Over here it did not pop up to a good nice scale, however, and the automatic scale here that I've got in that drawing should not be used because we got rid of the viewport. But if you notice that little line out here, these lines should line up directly if you've made your view, if you made everything correct. That's the rub here. I didn't necessarily, but you're pretty good at this point. You can go ahead and change the drawing scale, which is not popping up on my drawing here, but down on the right you have something called a drawing scale. Alright, let's go back and see what I should have done, because this is now ready to plot as long as you say DWGPROPS. DWGPROPS. Title November 3rd. Subject plotting. Author attack. And it will update it when you in fact go click and click back. It does update it. Let's go back to the step that is oh so important, and that is to say LMAN, layer manager, say new, and this is November 2nd plot. And the second step that is so important is to say minus V for view, W for window, plot view if you've only got one view name, from the endpoint there to the endpoint there. At this point you can even get rid of that line and do a new layer manager. In other words, you could freeze this layer and do a new layer manager if you didn't want that line showing up on your drawing. You go to ANSI A, you double click here on the outside, you say V for view, you pick your view, you set current, you say OK, and you click right there. And this should pop up exactly what you want. So that was the one I was looking. This is the viewport scale. Now everything is good to go. It's ready to plot, and you can then type plot. Of all the plotting that you'll see, besides going to a printer, going to a PDF right here. And if you notice here on mine, something I missed in class is every time you see this thing here, you push out. My settings are not set up correctly, so it's not going to plot correctly because something about the STB file is missing. If that's there, you have to start figuring out what went on with your settings. It's another visual check. I can go to plotter, I can go anywhere, I can go to the JPEG. I can now use a default paper size, I can preview, and you notice nothing comes out on the JPEG. But if you were going to actually print to something like a JPEG, you wouldn't print the model, you would print the view, plot. You can go ahead and grab your JPEG or your PNG, and then instead of plotting display or layout, you plot a view, you pick your view, you hit your preview, and there's your view right there. That's easy plotting, 15 minutes. Try it. We'll try it in class a couple different ways and one way more. However, views is the thing that's going to transfer for other software and for better plotting. Thanks for listening.